Right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the executive meeting for the 3rd of June 2025 at East Herts Council. Um, we'll move on to item 1, apologies for absence, and there are none. Thank you, Katie. Item 2 is leaders' announcements. As usual, it is just to remind everyone here that we've got people hopefully online listening in, and so please do use your microphones. And we'll move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the 18th of March 2025, which is on page 6 to 22 in the agenda pack. So we have in front of us the minutes from the committee meeting, which was on, as I say, on the 18th of March. Are members here happy for me to sign the minutes? No? Vicky, you've got a
Yeah,
comment.
yeah. Page 20 of the agenda, I said there would be a consultation on the vision document in spring this year and 2 consultations on the district plan once the update process had commenced, with the first of the district plan consultations being not before the end of next year, because it implies that the vision's not being looked at until the end of next year, which is not right.
Okay, great. We can get that corrected. That's lovely. Okay, with that correction then, could I have a proposer, please? Yeah, Joe, thank you very much. And a seconder, Vicky, thank you. Okay, so we've proposed and seconded. Can I have a hands from anyone, all those who in favour of accepting the minutes? Thank you very much. And anyone against or anyone abstaining? Okay, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Marnie. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Item 4 is declaration of interests. Are there any declarations of interest? Silence, good. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to tonight's really the Carl and Vicky show, and the opening is item 5, which is council tax support scheme, which is on pages 23 to 36 of the agenda pack, and I'll hand over to Councillor Carl Britton to present it.
Thank you, Leader. This is the Shared Revenues and Benefits Service Council Tax Reduction Scheme for 26-27. The report is an update on the work done so far and a request for permission to consult with the public and major precepting authorities on a proposed scheme. The scheme is planned to be introduced on 1st of April 2026. The Council needs to update the scheme for working age applicants to take account of the rollout of universal credit, as currently this creates a high administrative burden on the Council. Using a banded scheme will reduce the number of changes in the support that residents receive, which will be a benefit to the residents as well as the Council. It is also an opportunity to provide additional assistance to those who are most in need. Details of the principle of the proposed scheme are shown in the sections 22 to 26 of the report. I believe the scheme, as described in the report, still has several issues, and it remains a work in progress. Of particular concern to me is the existence of a 40% discount rate, meaning some residents currently qualifying for council tax support will be expected to pay 60% of their council tax bill, which could be over £1,000 per year extra. The bands are set at 20% intervals, which will mean that anyone who's lucky enough to climb up over an income threshold could then have to pay several £100s in additional council tax, which may be significantly more than the gain in their income. At this point, we're just voting to agree to a consultation, and the final scheme will be voted on by full council later this year. In addition, the paper will be going to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on June the 10th. To take account of the work that still needs to be done, I propose we amend the recommendation A to read as follows. Agree that the Council will consult with the public and major precepting authorities on the introduction of a new income banded stroke grid scheme for working age applicants with effect from 1st of April 2026. And then the addition of the following, with the final scheme to be consulted on and delegated to the Executive Member for Financial Sustainability in conjunction with the Section 151 officer final agreement. This will enable further work and consultation to be carried out without delaying the overall timetable. Subject to that amendment, I would like to propose the report.
Thank you very much, Carl. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Thanks very much, Chris. Okay. So comments, questions, any? Yeah, Eric?
Thanks, Chairman. I think reading through, I can understand why this is being suggested, and I think it's really to make it easier to administer. I'm just wondering whether it will be really easily understood. So I do appreciate it has to go to consultation and so on, but I just wonder whether there is a way of making sure that people really understand the implications, because there are quite a few disregards in there as well. So once you start adding those in, it sort of changes things quite a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it will be difficult for the average resident to actually be able to work out exactly what they're going to get from the scheme. I think they will be relying on the software to do that calculation for them. Yeah, I don't know how much of an issue that is, or whether we should be, whether there's any way we could make it simpler to take account of that. I'm not sure.
Right.
Thank you, Chair. So the scheme is obviously complicated, but again, it's complicated at the moment. So residents have issues at the moment. Hopefully, with the new banded scheme, residents will not need to go through as many reassessments during a year if their income changes week on week or month on month. So it should hopefully make it easier and more stable for residents. But yes, admittedly, it is a complicated scheme, as most benefit schemes are complicated.
Yeah, so if I can just come back on this, so I guess it's when the resident is told what they're entitled to, that needs to be really clear so that they can understand the reasoning and the rationale.
Yeah, Vicky.
I was quite shocked that 40% of residents currently are going through almost a monthly evaluation. You know, it's 8 to 12. And I would have thought that that was far more complicated for people than having, you know, the banded system, which at least means that there should be a significant reduction on the number of reevaluations that they're going through.
Yvonne, yeah.
Thank you. Can I just check what is meant by to improve the level of council tax collection? Does that mean reducing the arrears or something like that?
So at the moment, as I understand it, the lowest collection rate for council tax is those who receive council tax support. So we have the opportunity with this to create a 100% rebate, which will take those people who are in most need out of council tax altogether. And that will probably have a beneficial effect on the actual collection rate as a whole for the council.
Great. I've got a question actually, Carl. The consultation goes out to the public and to major precepting authorities. Does it include organisations like Citizens Advice and food banks, for example, who often deal with people in the most need, and so we will get their response? Do we know if it goes to them specifically, or would they just be amongst the public consultation?
I'm not aware of any specific arrangements to those, but something we can discuss. Brian,
Yeah, I'm not sure myself. Obviously, next week when it goes to ONS, the benefits manager and also the head of revenues and benefits will be coming along, and they'll be able to advise members then. My understanding is it will be a full open consultation for as many people as possible to have their views expressed.
Lovely. No, thanks. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, James?
Just before you do move on to the recommendations, clearly Councillor Britton mentioned the amendment to the recommendation. You will just need to have a seconder and vote to have that amendment put in before you then progress to the vote.
Do we need to read it out, or is it?
Yeah, if you can do that.
I think so. Okay, so you've proposed. Are there any more questions? Finally, no. Yeah. Well, yeah. Alex.
I've just got one thing.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to point out that there is an exceptional hardship payment element here, which perhaps is already there, but that is there to protect some people who may find themselves in difficulty.
I think, yeah, I mean, obviously there is that as a backstop for those in difficulty. I suppose my concern was that with the scheme as it's designed, almost everybody who's goes into that 40% band would be applying for that, and then actually would we actually be achieving anything at all if everyone's just trying to claw back that in a different way. So.
No, okay, all right. So this has been proposed. Could I have a seconder, please? Tim, thank you very much. So this, the recommendation for executive is that we agree the council will consult with the public and major precepting authorities on the introduction of a new income banded grid scheme for working age applicants with effect from the 1st of April 2026, with final scheme delegated to Councillor Carl Britton and RS 151 officer to firstly, reduce the administrative burden placed on the council by the introduction of universal credit. 2, improve the overall level of support for the lowest income families. And 3, improve the level of council tax collection. So in light of that amendment, please can I have a show of hands for those in support, please? Oh, do we vote on the amendment first? Sorry. Can we have a vote on the amendment first, please? All those in favour? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No? Okay. That's passed. And so now we will have, do we need it proposed again? Yeah. Yeah. Happy to propose that. Thank you very much. Could I have a seconder for the actual as amended? Thanks, Joe. So as amended, can I have a show of hands for all those in support, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No. That's carried. Thank you very much. Right. Item 6. So this is the provisional provisional outturn 2023-24 and 2023-24 draft statement of accounts, which is on pages 37 to 136 of the agenda pack. And I'll hand over again to Carl to present the report.
Thank you, Leader. This report presents the provisional outturn and draft statement of accounts for the year 2023-24. These items are subject to audit and are provisional at this stage. Both these reports have been subject to delays due to the late audits of 2021-22 and 22-23. They have been further delayed due to the capacity of the finance team and due to the necessary work to review aged debt, minimum revenue provision and capitalisation of interest. The previous audits and these reviews have now all been completed and impacts have been incorporated into these figures. The 23-24 outturn position shows a £224,000 underspend, which will be transferred to the general fund and will be used to offset an anticipated overspend in 2024-25. Within the year 23-24, the Council has increased the provision for doubtful debts by £659,000, which fairly reflects the number of outstanding debts which may not be fully collectible. It has also been able to transfer £1.2 million to the interest equalisation reserve, which should be sufficient to cover the potential losses on the property funds as they are wound up. By putting this money aside for these expected shortfalls, the Council now has insurance against some of the risks it had been facing. I'd like to propose this report and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Carl. And could I have a seconder, please, for the report? Thank you, Miney. Right, open for comments or questions. Any comments? Eric.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, and I note that this is delayed and we understand the reasons why, and presumably the version for the financial year just gone won't be too far away. Just for my clarification, really, on page 50, there's the green table that talks about fees and charges of 17.9 million. And I think I'm right in thinking those are gross figures before any costs are taken out. But on page 52, it then talks about 40 million direct costs providing council services of public environmental health planning, sports, leisure and parks. And I'm assuming those are net figures after the income from the leisure centres through the service provider. are taken into account. I just really wanted to ask whether I'm understanding that, and presumably the leisure service is dealt with differently or treated differently to Hertford Theatre, for example. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. So yeah, I'm fairly certain that the fees and charges are gross figures. So yeah, that's straightforward. Just looking at on the expenditure figures, that they're net figures, are they? Yeah, I think I think they are.
Yeah, it's just that there isn't a specific figure in this part of the report that says what the leisure service with Hartham and Grange Paddocks is producing. So it was just clarifying that.
Yeah, that Brian, have you got?
So in relation to the leisure contract, that is obviously, it'll be an agency payment, or be a payment we receive from the leisure supplier, because it's obviously a profitable operation. So we receive a annual income management fee from them for running that operation. So that income would have been included probably in the income graph, I would have thought.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. So, right, we've had a proposer and a seconder. The recommendations for executive are as shown on page 37 of the agenda pack. Can we have a show of hands, please, for those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, we're moving to item 7, which is the monitoring 2024-25 Q4 corporate risk register, which is on pages 137 to 142. And Carl, it's over to you again.
Okay, a review of the risk register has been carried out by the leadership team, with reviews on both the scores and mitigations. It is largely unchanged from last time, with no new risks added and no risks deleted. Risks around local government reorganisation was considered, but at this stage there is insufficient detail to be able to make an assessment, and there's very limited actions that we could take to mitigate. The recommendation is to note the risk register and actions being taken to control and mitigate risk, and I would like to propose this report.
Thank you, Carl. Could I have a seconder, please? Alex, thank you. Right, questions? Any questions on the risk register? Fairly straightforward, I think, but very important, obviously. Okay, so if there are no questions or comments, the recommendation for this item is detailed on page 137 of the agenda pack. Could I have a show of hands for all those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to item 8 now, which is options for Elizabeth Road Shops and Flats, Bishop Stortford. So this is on pages 143 to 171 of the agenda pack. I'm going to hand over to Councillor Carl Britton to present it. I just want to remind everyone that there's a restricted Appendix B attached to this paper. Over to you.
Thank you, Leader. This report analyses the options regarding the council-owned site at Elizabeth Road, Bishop Stortford. The site plan is shown in Appendix A. The proposal is to include the entire site bordered by the red line on the plan, though other options in terms of the site boundary have been considered, in particular excluding the green space and car park. For flexibility, they have been left in, but may be negotiable with any interested buyer. The parade is currently in a poor state of repair, having suffered from a lack of investment in recent years. Significant catch-up repairs are now required. Additionally, Government proposals to set higher minimum energy efficiency levels will probably lead to the shops and flats becoming unlettable in the next few years without significant upgrades. Whilst the parade as a whole has performed poorly in financial terms under the management of the council, there are several successful businesses still trading within it. The report considers 4 options: full catch-up repairs, a lesser level of works, disposal of the block of the open market, or do nothing. Tables 1 to 3 in the report show the outcome in year 1 of each of these options, with a summary of these options in Table 4 and a comparison against the budget. Table 5 shows the forecast financial implications over a 30-year period. The detail behind these figures lies within the restricted enclosure. The overall conclusion is that in terms of the financial outcome, by far the best option for the council will be to sell the site and use the proceeds to reduce debt. The do-nothing option would eventually lead to the loss of rental income completely as the properties become unlettable, whilst repairs, either major or minor, will not lead to a significant uplift in income and will put additional strain on the council finances. It is accepted that historically the council has not managed these properties well, and sale probably represents the best long-term interest of the local community. The management of small shops is not a core activity of the council, and there is no commercial case for their retention. By selling this parade and associated land, the council's financial position will be strengthened, helping to protect essential services. I'd like to propose this report and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Carl. Could I have a seconder, please? Sarah, thank you very much. Right, with a reminder that Appendix B is restricted. So if we want to talk about that, please do flag that up. Comments and questions? Yvonne.
Thank you, Leader. Members, this is in my ward. Councillor Jacobs regrets that he's unable to attend tonight. For the last 2 years, Councillor Jacobs and I have been asking for the 3 vacant shops to be let and for the short leases of the 4 businesses to be extended to 10-year leases, which are much more secure. We are grateful for the discussions we have had with you and officers, and I hope you will bear with me as I wish to ask a few questions on the report. The report describes the current administration's neglect of this community asset. This property is different from other property disposals, which are either leftover areas of unused land, or the freehold of leased car parking, or land for development by agreement. With this property, the council is a social landlord for active businesses and homes. These are the kind of community facilities that the council strives to achieve in new development master plans. They are local neighbourhood gold dust. In the description of failure in paragraphs 2.12 to 2.19, the report completely omits any reference to the existing 4 stable businesses and the families that live in the flats, though Councillor Britton has just acknowledged them in your introduction. I would therefore ask that executive members note the following. Posh Paws has been here for over 20 years. Tonya employs 2 other staff and a volunteer. Tonya's short-term lease, imposed by the council, expires in July. I have a direct quote here from Tonya. She says, "Hopefully they aren't going to kick me out at the end of July." The Fish Inn has been established since 2011, and Ali employs 4 or 5 people. Dawn to Dusk has been run by Afzal since 2018 with 2 staff, but it has been trading as a corner shop for over 40 years and continues to thrive since and despite Tesco Express arrived over the road. Lee Garden has been here since 2013, also well before COVID, and Yo employs 4 other staff in this business. The value of these businesses is best expressed by one of the many emails Councillor Jacobs and I have received, which includes While I understand the difficult financial situation many bodies find themselves in, and the competing demands for limited resources, I cannot stress enough how important it is to retain long-term community assets like these shops. This is about the future. Ownership, be it private or public, is not necessarily the issue, but what works best long-term is what matters. Although I am housebound, my mother visits the shops. My mum speaks to the staff in all of those shops, and they are always friendly. When it's the same staff arriving at your door to hand you your takeaway, it's special. Several of the 40+ residents in the sheltered accommodation on this estate use those shops, as do others from across town. Paragraph 20.20 is the crux of this report, where executive members are asked to quote, consider how to enable the ongoing provision of services at the site alongside asset management considerations. So in the light of that, I wish to ask Councillor Britton and the leader, if and when you put the freehold on the market, can you please ensure the sale particulars protect the existing tenants and their businesses? This means that before decision, the paragraph needs to be clarified that best consideration will mean sale of the property with the tenants and their established businesses. This is a perfectly reasonable constraint for a socially responsible local authority to make. Can I also ask you to change the boundary to leave out public park space, which is east and south of the parade, a public footpath, and the public car park? The public park space is referred to in the report as a grassed area. Councillor Jacobs and I have given you a plan of an alternative boundary around the buildings and the forecourt, which is appropriate for this disposal exercise. You mentioned just now that this is negotiable, the boundary is negotiable. That, of course, should start from the open areas being excluded. I wish to ask the Executive Member for Wellbeing, Councillor Hopewell, what public parkland within this district is casually expendable under a Green Party administration? And I'd like to ask the Executive Member for Planning, Councillor Glover Ward, how you sit with paragraph 1.3, which enables the highest bidding owner of public parkland to consider, quote, revised land use, design or development subject to planning permission. Could I ask the Executive Member for Sustainability, Councillor Hoskin, to state your explicit support for selling off an 8-space public car park serving the whole neighbourhood centre at Havers? At the very end of the report, at 3.1, it talks for the first time of deterioration of the roof, but this is not described in the report and makes no reference to a survey. In fact, the roof is sound. It just needs moss removed. I wonder whether the report can also be amended to describe the single leak and a single patch repair at Lee Garden only, where this is an issue, rather than implying an exaggerated scale of the issue. Regarding the EPC, could I ask Councillor Hoskin why the Party of the Environment has failed to install loft insulation in homes under its management? In justifying the disposal of these shops and homes, paragraph 2.2 describes the backlog of repairs and the ongoing maintenance issues and the need to meet energy efficiency standards. All of these are directly the administration's own failings. The 3 vacancies and run-down appearance of the vacant units is due to this administration, which deliberately kept them vacant and neglected the maintenance of the buildings. The report says, quote, management of small shops is not a core activity. In this case, it is not an activity at all. I do hope you will review the recommendation before making a decision. Finally, in relation to paragraph 5.2, about risks of the community not welcoming a sale, I need to let you know that some residents started a petition a few days ago without any involvement of me or David, and there are currently 400 signatures on that. Part of what that petition says is our local shops are not just a place to purchase goods, they are the heartbeat of our community. Havers shops provide a place for local people to gather, connect and support each other. These shops are woven into the fabric of our daily lives, providing convenience and a personal touch that large chain stores simply cannot match. Many of us rely on these shops for our everyday needs, from fresh groceries to essential services. Ensuring the survival of Havers shops means preserving a way of life that values community, sustainability, and local identity. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, Carl. Do you want to start the process of answering those questions?
Yeah, there's obviously a lot in there. Thank you for the time you've taken on that. And some of those points I think you raised by email. I don't know if you've seen that. I did send a reply to that email just about an hour ago. So there's some comments. Some of your comments I've answered it in that. I'll just pick up on some of the bigger ones. I think you talked about ownership and the council's role as a social landlord, and I suppose it's possibly unique for this council, that row of shops in that sense, and it's not a core activity. And actually, as a council, perhaps our resources are better utilised to do the core activities that we're good at. And you know, being a landlord on a row of shops like that is kind of, I suppose, often in the private sector. And you know, in terms of the sale, I mean, hopefully I'm not going to say anything that's wrong here, but I've had an email already from somebody who is interested in purchasing this row of shops. They are a landlord of these types of properties, and they're already interested. So, you know, just because we're selling it doesn't mean it's going to change its use. We may just sell it to someone else who will do the job better than we can do because it's not our core activity. So I think, yeah, ownership is important to a degree, but actually I think it could have a better future under a different owner. In terms of putting on a sale condition, I think I'd need to take legal advice on that. My expectation is that putting any kind of sale condition on would obviously impact on the value of the property significantly, and I'm not sure how easily it is to enforce. You know, and over what time period. So I can see why there are issues from a legal point of view and why it would be much simpler to not have to worry about that. Heard what you say about the boundary change, and yeah, obviously we did think about the boundary change, but we don't know what any future owner is going to want to do in that site. And by creating the boundary as the entire site, it gives us flexibility of negotiations. Have we only made the boundary part of the site, and then a new owner came along and said, well, actually, I'd really like to buy that bit as well, we'd then have to go through a whole new process of authorising the sale. So authorise the sale of the entire site, and then we can negotiate with purchasers about exactly the boundary that we sell. But it obviously simplifies things selling the whole site. We know it's a problem to the council being left with small plots of land dotted around that, you know, and I think obviously it mentioned in the report, you know, potential issues with kind of where you have neighbours, you know, about disputes with neighbours about whose maintenance responsibility. So it's easier to sell it as one plot if we can. Maintenance, you talked about the maintenance and the lack of maintenance, and I think that obviously has been a problem. It's not just been over this administration. I think that maintenance problem goes back many years, and I think as a general comment, I think, you know, the council hasn't maintained these properties because it hasn't had the money. You know, basically where we are financially is that we're in a position where we can only afford to repair the things that need repairing urgently. Yeah, we haven't got the funds to kind of create a kind of big maintenance fund where we can do this kind of regular maintenance. And yeah, interesting to hear about the petition. But I mean, all I can say to that is, yeah, just because it's for sale doesn't mean it's going to be sold and it's going to be changed. It could well continue in its current guise, and it may improve. A private landlord will have more incentive to get those shops filled and may have better routes to market than the council have. So hopefully I've got the bulk of your questions there. I think you had one or two for the other executive members, and you can come back to me if you get any further comments.
Okay, shall I go to you, Vicky, first? Okay.
As the Member for Financial Sustainability has said, we don't know what is going to happen with that site. We don't know what design might come forward. We don't know whether a design, including the green spaces, might be better than or worse than what is already there. Consequently, speaking as a property professional, I wouldn't want to fetter whoever is purchasing the site from coming forward with something that might be quite exciting. Whatever design comes forward will be subject to a planning application which can be called in and can be discussed at DMC if need be. And therefore I don't see any concerns about the boundary in that respect.
Thank you. Sarah, was it a response from you?
Yeah, thank you, Legion, and thank you, Yvonne. And I can hear this is obviously a really valued area within your ward, and you know you've given a really clear outline as to the impact for you and the residents and the you know concerns. You specifically asked about expending of green spaces. I mean, I think any administration, and I'm sure I don't speak out of turn to say that we're really keen to make sure green spaces work well and are enhanced and looked after. I think sort of it's slightly being covered already, but as per Vicky and Carl, the aim of having the boundary wider is to then enable greater option for, I guess, flexibility, and the boundary there doesn't necessarily mean that that's where the end opportunity, where where its final position would be. I guess the thinking being having it wider and going smaller is a more straightforward approach than starting off with a really tight boundary and then having to renegotiate and go through the kind of discussion process again. But yeah, I mean, as Vicky said, there's potential that there could be some really positive enhancements to the green space, and anything that does happen would be going through the planning process as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Come back to Tim. Did you want to?
Yeah,
respond
well, I've got two
briefly?
questions, I think, Yvonne.
Hmm.
Thanks for sending them through. I was grateful for that. So the first one is, you asked whether I personally support the sale of the car park or the car parking spaces involved in that site. And I think it follows the logic of the response that have been given before. To my mind, it would be odd to try and sell a commercial property without the car parking spaces. I can see that being at odds with the sort of commercial logic of that. And so it seems sensible to me to include the car park as part of that going concern, and that then supports the best possible opportunity for a future purchaser to think through what the flexibility could be. So again, echoing colleagues, I think it starts big, and then there are opportunities for that to shrink if that's what a buyer or the market sort of highlights. So I think for me, yes, I do support it with the sale of the car park. It's not an asset which earns money for East Herts. It's not a chargeable car park. It's a free car park for use by whoever visits those shops and or flats. So yes, I do support it being included. You asked a second question about why, as a Green Council, we'd not insulated lofts, which I think is shorthand for, that we fell short on the EPC. The reality is we haven't fallen short on the EPC. They all meet the current standards of EPC. In the paper, we forecast that those EPC requirements will will increase, and that's absolutely right and proper. We're completely supportive of that. But they all meet the standards there, with the exception of one, which is flat 35, which currently has an EPC of F, which is outside the range of E and up. And the reason being for that is that the inspector at that time said that it needed cavity wall insulation and a hot water jacket. This was at the time of renewal of a lease, and in agreement with the tenant, those works were put on hold because this thought process was starting up at the same time. So all the shops meet the standards, all the properties bar one meet the standards, and as a green administration, we've invested a huge amount of money in terms of UK Shared Prosperity, in community funds, in residential housing, in energy hubs, spreading the word. So it's something that we take extraordinarily seriously and are willing to back with real money. You'll see, and we won't go into the part two, but you'll see the extraordinary amounts that are needed in order to be able to bring this into our forecast requirements that we're forecasting will be required to do this. And we think that's better placed, as Carl was saying earlier on, in a commercial environment where people can make those judgments and market the thing much more actively than we've been able to do. So I hope that goes some way to answering your questions.
Miley, did you want to come back on the questions, or? Yeah.
No, not on the questions particularly, but thank you, Leader. No, I'd just like to make a comment. I'd like to say that, yes, I agree with a great deal of what has been said by my colleagues. I think they've covered many of the aspects about it. This is really a difficult topic for us all, and we're being required to make a very difficult decision tonight, because I know that we all appreciate community assets. We all appreciate our little local shops and appreciate the fact that they deliver personal service. So we do value them very highly. But having said that, of course, the ownership and management of shops is not a core duty of councils. We are not the experts in it. And also it is an expensive business. So it could well be that somebody else could own them and manage them much, much better than the council could. We do have to be realistic about all the costs that would be involved in trying to continue with them, the difficulty of marketing them, and getting other people to take over the shops. It has not been possible so far to fill the vacant shops. So there are problems with the market. And I think, being realistic, it would be much better for us to hand over to somebody who might be able to manage things much better. This decision has not been taken lightly. A great deal of research has gone into this, all the costs, all the expenses, and all the pros and cons of the different options. So I think I've come to the conclusion that the best option is to sell the whole block, and with the whole plot of the land. As Councillor Britton says, if you sell the whole thing with the wider plot site, then that does give a future owner many more options of how to deal with the whole site. I think what would happen next will be controlled by planning, and I think there is safety in planning principles and policies which would protect what might happen on this site in the future. So my final conclusion is that yes, the council should sell, and it should follow option 3 as presented in our paper. Thank you.
Thanks, Miley. Yes, Yvonne, did you want to come back? Do you have any questions, if that's okay?
If I may, just briefly, with the flexibility in terms of including the whole area on the basis that it allows flexibility, it just seems the wrong way around. I think it's possible to anticipate what somebody might do and to have a tighter boundary, realistic boundary, and possibly a brief that goes with it. By including the park, it's a park area, planning, we can't just hand over to planning. They will want to protect park space public open space. But by including it, we have in our memories in that area the greedy and ugly development that the last administration tried to do on this site. They made this the council that ran during 22 made a planning application to redevelop following the boundaries and building over the green space. That's kind of rattling in our memories. That seems to be a risk that's invited if that larger area is included. The report doesn't say that the head of planning has been consulted. The report doesn't say that the head of parks has been consulted. These seem to be omissions to me. In terms of the car park, this is the shops and flats is a commercial property. The parking is not part of that as parking for those shops. It's public parking. It's parking for the whole Havers neighbourhood centre. There are other shops. There's the Havers supermarket, there's the laundrette, there's the barbers, there's the coffee shop. And it's all of those things. It's the open space itself that car park is being supported, that is supporting. And it's not, finally, yes, it's not the core business of the council to run shops, but that's not an excuse for the vacancy. The units have been deliberately kept vacant. The leases have been kept to 2 years. Not being core business is not an excuse for that kind of insecurity and neglect, which has made the police regard this as an area for attracting antisocial behaviour. That is entirely because there are 3 vacant units, which is because this council has kept them vacant. And so hiding behind that is not our core activity, it's just not good enough.
I should just challenge. I don't think the logic goes that 3 empty units means that it's a dangerous area. That brings it. That's not the case.
That's exactly what we've said to the police.
Yeah, a couple of things I just wanted to come back on there. Firstly, talked about the previous application, and I can totally understand why you kind of fear that kind of thing because it's happened before. My thought was, but the planning system prevented it. And I suppose that, in a sense, that gives me kind of hope that the planning system will continue to prevent that kind of development. So I think we should take that as a positive, that planning won't allow uncontrolled development on that space. And as for the vacancies, obviously, yes, that's obviously historic. And yes, we haven't. I think as a council, we haven't been good at marketing those properties, and that is the reason why we probably not really in this. Shouldn't really be in this business because we're not very good at it. And a private sector company will know how to market those businesses and will know what businesses to get in there, and they will do it a lot better than we can. And yes, we've not been good. I think I would accept that. And it's not in the report, but it's historical. It's spilt milk. It's gone. We've got to look to the future.
Vicky.
I think in this situation, you need to recognise that the council is wearing 2 hats. There is the hat of the landowner, and there is the hat where we've got planning. I would not think it would be appropriate for the director of place to comment on a property sale vis-a-vis whether it's going to get planning permission on something that we don't know what it's going to be. So I wouldn't expect that question would be asked in the first place.
Yeah, Chris.
Thanks, Leader. I heard your passion, Yvonne, and indeed it seems a lot of passion of your ward residents as well. But that does mean there's a demand for the shops to be there, and someone commercially minded will hopefully recognise that. So I think you could be more hopeful than you're sounding in terms of the viability of the shops in future. The other thing is we do have to look at priorities here, as we always have to, especially with the straitened financial circumstances we're in. And therefore what we're looking at here is making sure that our services are protected and improved and as best as they can be, and as little cuts as possible whenever we have an opportunity to save money when something we don't have to do. So can't really justify a lot of money being spent on a row of shops when we're looking at waste and planning and licensing and housing, etc. We need to make sure those services are provided for the public as best as possible.
Thanks, Chris. I think maybe it's worth thinking as well. One of the big challenges that we face now as a district council is local government reorganisation, and the challenge has been set to us by government, and we have to rise to that. And one of the big challenges is how do we ensure that we are financially sustainable in whatever form that takes? And one of the direct requests from government has been, make sure your council is financially healthy. And so I think this is, as Chris said and others have said, this is one part of that. We wouldn't necessarily want to be here, but that's where we are. Yeah, thanks very much. Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, it does, I think, when the joint administration was formed, we were told there'd be difficult decisions to be taken. And this, again, unfortunately falls into that box. We've had to make these decisions with various other community assets, and I don't think any of us do it without giving the right level of thought to it. But when you look at, I mean, you've already said it's been let go, it's not had the investment, it's not been looked after properly. Then you look at the numbers, what are needed to do that, and it's like, where does that come from? And I mean, again, there's been, I think it's very easy to blame. We've blamed you in the past, the Tories, not you personally, but the situations before with decisions made, and now you're blaming us. And hopefully we can try and take a bit of that thing out of it, because I think we're in a situation where it's the whole system that has put councils like us in these situations. And I'll keep saying that at every opportunity. And none of us want to make these decisions, especially when there are people in situ with their own businesses. It's very, very difficult for us to take these decisions. But we do need to look, disappointingly, at the bigger picture.
Okay, I think we'll move to a vote. So the recommendation for this item is detailed on page 143 of the agenda pack. There is one recommendation. Can I ask for a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you very much. Any against? And any abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. Right, we'll move now to item 9, which is update of the statement of community involvement, which is on pages 172 to 249. And I'll hand over to Vicky.
Thank you, Leader. A Statement of Community Involvement, or an SCI, is an evolving document that must be updated at least every 5 years to meet the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004, as amended. An SCI simply sets out how the Council will consult with the public on planning matters. The previous SCI was adopted in 2019, and this report seeks adoption of an updated version as found in Appendix A of the report. This review of the SCI has provided an opportunity to update the document to align with the Council's current priorities, policies, objectives and procedures. The SCI aligns with the Council's LEAF priorities in the corporate plan and our core value of being a listening council. These are both particularly pertinent to the SCI as they provide a strong focus on the Council being open and transparent, while promoting listening and engaging with the community in a fair and inclusive way. The updated SCI provides ways in which the Council can achieve that within the planning context. The update also includes changes to the Constitution regarding planning matters that were agreed last February. The Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 2023 has several implications for planning. However, many details still need to be set out through secondary legislation. The update to the SCI reflects our current knowledge of the legislation, so allows for transition to meet the new requirements once further information is released. For example, the updated SCI now aligns with the process set out in the timetable for district plan production within the Council's local development scheme. The main changes to the SCI update are detailed in the report, but in overview this includes more information on the principles of consultation and how the Council would implement those principles within our planning engagements, More details on potential consultation methods and how digital technology may be used within planning consultations to help make them more accessible and efficient. An engagement strategy template to support preparation of planning policy consultations, clearly setting out who will be consulted and how each consultation will be conducted, and also a new section for neighbourhood plan reviews explaining how that process works and how communities can get involved. An equalities impact assessment can be found at Appendix B to the report. This assessed the impact the updated SCI would have to different groups in the community. The impact was found to be generally positive to those who live and work in East Herts because it encourages engagement with different groups at various opportunities in the planning process, giving a greater chance for all groups within the community to be heard. Once adopted, the SCI before you today will replace the October 2019 version of the document and will be published on the Council's website. So, I would like to propose that, as detailed on page 172 of the agenda pack, that that Executive recommend to full Council that the Statement of Community Involvement 2025, as included at Appendix A to the report, be approved for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder for this, please? Chris, thank you very much. Questions, comments, any questions or comments on this? Yeah, Yvonne?
One thought is that the evidence base that is produced by the council is huge and really important and very difficult to understand. And so I hope that maybe this will include some provisions for translating some of these very big strategic studies into a way that people can understand. It's people are very interested, and that kind of explanation will help to subdue some of the criticism that we hear a lot about the sheer extent of development and all that sort of thing. So is that translation of complicated strategic studies that would be good?
Okay. Given that the next either the next item or the item after that is the adoption of a rather huge study that came from HCC, I'm not sure how we would produce that into an adequate synopsis in a few pages. I will consider with the member for residents engagement how we might bring that into action. However, I would remind the councillor that we do have limited resources, and we do need to prioritise the district plan review, which and making a synopsis of a couple hundred pages of document does take a considerable amount of officer time.
Okay, I mean, it sounds a bit like a job for AI, to be honest. It could be something that would be relatively quick. Do you want to come back?
I mean, maybe it's something that we ask the consultants to do. They always do an executive summary. That's not always necessarily accessible, even when it's a summary. But it's that the necessity to make things understandable might be something that the consultant it becomes part of the brief.
I think that's fine where we're commissioning the study in the first place. We didn't commission the green infrastructure strategy that we are taking over. We don't commission the HNRS, the Hertfordshire Nature Recovery Strategy either. So we are taking documents from different sources that we can't necessarily impact on whether those have an exec summary or not, and whether the exec summary runs to a few hundred pages. But I would like to bring in the Principal Planning Officer, who I believe wants to make a comment.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with the point on making planning more accessible, and part of the principles in the SCI is to try and avoid planning jargon, which is one of the big things, a bit of a barrier to people getting engaged. But what I would say is planning is one of those things that is on the government's agenda, and they're doing a lot more for digital technology and how that can be used. So you see a lot more maps and better graphics, and it makes it a bit easier for the public to understand. So that's, as documents come forward, a lot more of that's being shown.
And in fact, I think there's an example in here, table 6.1 on page 223, which I think is an excellent summary of the consultation methods that we all go through on different size sites. And actually that's a really useful table in itself. I think that's really, really clear, and it answers a lot of questions of the kind that I get from residents about how they're going to be consulted on different developments. So there's some good bits in here as well. Okay, any other questions, comments? No? Okay, so well, we've had a proposer, a seconder. Please can we have a show of hands to indicate whether you are in favour of the proposal? All in favour? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, as promised, item 10, Hertfordshire Green Infrastructure Strategy, which is on pages 250 to 561 of the agenda pack. And over to Vicky again.
Thank you, Leader. This council agreed to update the district plan with a view to commence formal work in early 2026. To facilitate this update, a vast quantity of underpinning evidence is required to support the strategies that the council will ultimately choose. Various different evidence-based studies will inform each policy in the district plan to ensure that policies are based on comprehensive and robust information that addresses key local priorities and issues. The Hertfordshire Green Infrastructure Study was commissioned by the Hertfordshire Infrastructure and Planning Partnership, HIP, to update the original 2011 Green Infrastructure Plan and provide a joint approach on green infrastructure planning. The current district plan was informed by the 2011 Hertfordshire Green Infrastructure Plan, which was endorsed as part of the evidence base to inform the current district plan. Likewise, this Hertfordshire Green Infrastructure Strategy will, if adopted, form part of the evidence base for the new district plan. The full evidence base for the district plan is detailed on page 571 of the agenda pack. As can be seen under the environment and landscape theme, there is a plethora of evidence documents, including items such as the Greenbelt Review, Climate Change Study and the Water Cycle Study, amongst other items. The purpose of an evidence base is to support and inform the strategy and policies that are eventually included in the district plan, and, for the avoidance of doubt, there is no hierarchy in the evidence base. The Hertfordshire Green Infrastructure Strategy provides a strategic framework for considering green infrastructure within the district and covers 6 main green infrastructure themes. These are a resilient landscape, including sustainability and remediation, heritage and a sense of place, nature recovery, under which the Hertfordshire Nature Recovery Strategy would sit, access and connectivity, the water environment, and then finally people, health and well-being. These are all detailed on page 252 of the agenda, but as you can see, the green infrastructure is multifunctional with a range of benefits for people, nature and the climate, which underlines why it is so important it is conserved and enhanced in East Herts. The strategy presents an overview of the strengths and weaknesses of Hertfordshire's current green infrastructure network and identifies strategic priorities and actions to restore and improve green infrastructure in Hertfordshire, as detailed in paragraph 3.6 of the executive report. It is officers' view that the strategic analysis and actions in the Hertfordshire Green Infrastructure Strategy provide an overarching framework that can usefully inform the new district plan alongside other relevant documents and strategies that will impact the policy approach to green infrastructure in the district plan. Therefore, now work has commenced on collating the evidence base, it is recommended that the strategy is agreed as part of the district plan evidence base. So I would like to propose that, as detailed on page 250 of the agenda pack, that the Hertfordshire Green Infrastructure Strategy 2022, attached in 3 sections as Appendix A, B and C, be agreed as part of the evidence base to inform the new East Herts District Plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder, please? Marnie, thank you very much. So, comments or questions on this? Alex.
I think it's really good to see such a lot of evidence here, and I'm particularly looking 3.6 at things like the conservation of chalk rivers, the enhancement of river corridors, and that'd be really interesting to see what can be brought forward with this strength of the evidence that's in this research, this report. So thank you.
Yeah, certainly a very broad document, isn't it? Tim.
Yeah, just to re-emphasise that broad base, it talks about infrastructure for active travel, which is should be a high priority for getting out of our cars and exercising.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. It is a really important document, and I guess the fact that HIP commissioned it, it's county-wide, something we've discussed a lot at county over the last few years, given the amount of growth, looking around 100,000 homes, you've got to look at where you provide enough functional things for the environment, for health and well-being. It's a good description. 1.5 on page 263, which talks about a network of multifunctional green and blue spaces, etc., economic health and well-being. And when you consider that East Herts geographically is around a third of the whole county, it just emphasises how important this is. So yeah, as long as it's linked with nature recovery and as long as it's good growth, and we take all of those things into account, then this is a really good framework to then look at planning policies that come out of that.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay. Right. So we will take a vote on the recommendation. As Vicky said, this item is detailed on page 250 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands for all those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, on to item 11, which is membership of the District Plan Executive Panel. And that's on pages 562 to 571. So over to you, Vicky.
Thank you, Leader. As I've previously outlined, the Council has agreed that a review of the adopted district plan should be undertaken. I just feel like there's an echo in here. The process of preparing a district plan is a lengthy and complex exercise, but is essential to provide plan-led development. The process of updating the district plan, which can take several years from start to finish, requires a wide range of supporting evidence that is subject to public engagement and independent examination through various stages and procedures that are set out in law. The current adopted district plan was enabled by a District Plan Executive Panel, also known as DPEP, consisting of a subgroup of members whose remit was to make recommendations to Council via the Executive on matters associated with the district plan. The intention, as set out in the agenda, is to reconvene the DPEP in advance of formal work on the new district plan starting in early 2026. There is an ongoing and continuous need to inform members of progress both on the plan's preparation and on feedback from the community. That will increasingly become part of that preparation. See the outline and programme and evidence requirements set out in Appendix A, which lists quite a lot of stuff. This should become time-consuming for the executive meeting, which clearly needs to consider other council businesses as well, and may not allow for members to really drill down into the detail of the whys and wherefores relating to a particular issue. DPEP will allow for a full consideration before items are recommended to the full executive and or full council. 3 executive members will sit on the DPEP, with all other members able to attend open sessions so everyone can have a full input to the discussion and so that all members can question planning policy officers on the pros and cons of an issue. DPEP allows the flexibility to convene meetings which are open to the public with agendas and minutes made available on the Council's website. Any items considered by DPEP will be presented to the Executive and full Council. So, I would like to propose a motion as detailed on page 562 of the agenda pack that the executive recommend to council that the DPEP is reconvened as a subgroup of the executive for the specific purposes of advancing the new district plan. 3 members are drawn from the executive to sit on the DPEP, namely myself as chair, Councillor Ben Crystal and Councillor Joseph Dumont, with Councillor Tim Hoskin as a sub for the Green Party members and Councillor Chris Wilson as a sub for Councillor Dumont. And finally, the Council's website is updated to reflect the formation and purpose of the panel and forms the primary source of information pertaining to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Sarah. Right, comments or questions? Sarah.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for this report, and also thank you to the members who have very kindly put themselves forward for this. And you know, it's a big piece of work, and you know, I think it's just really important that there is this opportunity for the detail to be looked into in a lot more detail with those members, and for it to be given the proper time that it needs. Like you said, there's quite a lot of other council business, and the risk is that if the whole exec is doing all of it, we just don't, you know, you just kind of glance over it. You know, not glance over it, but don't have that deep dive opportunity. And I think it's great that all members can participate, can attend, and I'd just really like to take this opportunity to really encourage everybody and myself, but everybody really to take advantage of that opportunity. This is possibly one of the most important things that all of us as this administration will be working on over the next couple of years, and will have a really long-lasting impact on the district that we all care so deeply about. So yeah, just a plea and encouragement, you know, that we all kind of really get involved in this to the extent that we're able to, whilst juggling everything else. Thank you.
Yeah, well said. And it's great that the public as well have that access, and that's something that we as ward councillors, all of us, can encourage. That's a really important role. Get the public to come along, listen and ask questions. That's really important. Any other questions, Eric? Yeah.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, I was on the previous panel leading up to 2018, and absolutely agree with the earlier comments. There's a lot of documentation, a lot of reading. Some of it can be quite technical. So I think having a specialist panel dealing with it is absolutely the right way to go. And of course, during that panel, it's interactive. As has been mentioned, all members of the council have the ability to hear the reports as presented by officers, and there's no restriction in terms of the way the dialogue goes. So, you know, you can take as long as you like, in theory, to discuss particular things. All I will say is good luck, all of you, because it is a lot of reading, but absolutely the right way to go. Yeah, the executive isn't the format to do it. It needs to be done with a specialist panel. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yvonne, yeah.
Yes, sounds very good. Welcome it, all the best. I wanted to echo what Councillor Hopewell said. It's great that there's going to be a body of some sort, that it's going to be open to all members to contribute to. It's probably better than a committee. There'll be times when decisions do have to be made, but it does enable members to monitor the work that the professional staff are doing, which is going to be pretty involved a lot of the time, and to pick out times when there might need to be a decision. So just welcome it. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, Tony.
I was just going to make a comment really about the last district plan, and we had our one called in for a month, I believe, and it could be longer, so it might take longer than 2 years. It gets called in by government because things are not quite right, you know.
Government has said it will be done in 2.5 years. So obviously it is achievable.
Great. Any other comments? Any questions? Yeah, Joe.
I think it's just kind of agreeing with what Eric said a moment ago, that it's the open dialogue. So even though it's a panel of 3 executive members, it's an opportunity for everyone on the council, all members. Just important to say that. But I did want to ask one question to Vicky. Members of the public can come. Is there a public questions? Maybe it's a question for James. I'm not sure. Is there a mechanism for the public to formally ask questions? Because I presume they can't get involved wouldn't normally get involved in the open dialogue.
I think the answer's no, but I'm going to pass it over to the Director for Legal Policy and Governance.
I'll have a look into what processes could be there, because I can see why there would be a desire to be able to do that. So there should be sort of a way that their questions can be kind of formulated, I would have thought. But let me have a think of it and come back to you later this week on what process could be followed.
And I would welcome that, but I would also say that even if we can't do that, obviously members of the public can approach their ward councillors and ask the questions that way if need be.
Or presumably approach members of the DPEP before the meeting.
Absolutely.
To raise that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, no more questions. Okay, right. Well, let's look at the recommendation. So as Vicky said, there are 3 recommendations, and they are on page 562 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands for all those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Anyone against or abstaining? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. Right, item 12, urgent business. There's no urgent business, and so at 2016, I declare the meeting closed.